Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome
Good morning.
to the January 13th meeting of the Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise. Thank you, Marty, for being the greeter this morning. Unfortunately, your co-host decided not to cooperate, so we didn't get to see Max this morning, but maybe at some point in the meeting we will.
He's running around here someplace.
Nancy Wilson, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, ma'am. Hand to your heart. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Somehow that has greater meaning this week.
No kidding.
No kidding. So, is Brian Bauer with us this morning?
Don't see him.
I haven't seen him come in yet. So we need a thought for the day. Does anybody have a thought, or anybody thoughtful, or?
God bless.
Looks like Brian's talking right now.
No thoughts? Nobody's thought?
Oh, I have one I could use.
Okay.
It was one of Kurt's favorite. A person all wrapped up in themselves makes a mighty small package. It's the opposite of the Rotarians, I know.
That is
Brian
very
looks like he's
appropriate.
logged in.
Yes, I wanted to hear Kurt's thought for the day, so that sounded great.
Okay, Brian, do you have a thought now that you're here?
Yeah, I just wanted to hear Kurt's thought for the day, and that sounded great.
Oh, okay. Okie dokie. So I came across this and I thought this was appropriate. To attempt to superimpose its views through exercise of force is seldom the part of intelligence. It is frequently the part of ignorance. Good old Paul Harris.
Here.
So Joe.
Here. Good morning, President Barbara.
Good morning, Joe.
It's really foggy here today.
It's foggy. Yeah, I can see that. But we could do a little "This Land Is Your Land," however. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Beginning with the verse. As I was walking that highway, I saw above me that endless highway, above me that golden valley. This land is your land, and this is my land, California. The redwood forest, Gulf Stream water. This land is you and me.
Thank you.
All right. Good.
So we have a cyber Rotarian with us. Welcome. From the Rotary Club of Sebastopol, past District Governor Bob Rogers is with us this morning, and we will be hearing from him in a little bit. Now, do we have any other guests? I didn't see anybody I didn't know. So, okay, this is not the Zoom bomb day. So wave to your friends. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see y'all. And then I get the privilege of muting everybody. There we go. But then be sure to unmute yourself. And if you just can't resist, you can unmute yourself. But remember, if you start talking or have other stuff in the background, you will get muted. Okay, we have a few birthdays. Now, I don't see Bruce this morning, but you know, now that they're members of the Sparks Club, he didn't come up on my list that I printed out of the club database, but his birthday was on January 3rd. Gail Thomas, your birthday was this January 12th, and I'm sorry we didn't get you last week, but happy birthday, Gail.
Thank
And
you.
did you do anything exciting for your birthday?
Well, you know, in this time of COVID, it's a little hard to have a big celebration. But I was blessed by having a number of people wish me happy birthday, and I appreciated that. And I can't believe it, but that was 81 years.
Wow.
And I never thought that I'd ever be saying that. So I guess I'm glad I'm saying it.
Yes.
Congratulations to you.
Congratulations. That's fabulous. Did you get cake?
Well, actually, my daughter-in-law and son put together, of course, I live here with them, and they put together a lovely dinner. And no, it wasn't cake. It was creme brulee.
Ooh,
Outstanding.
good. Wonderful. Now, David Mark Raymond, your birthday is coming up on the 15th.
That's right. They made a holiday out of it.
Yes, they did. So what exciting thing are you going to do for your birthday?
Well, I was really hoping for a good, quiet evening at home.
Okay.
Change of pace.
The easy way to do that is you just turn off all electronic devices.
Well, I'm not going to do that. I will turn off all news. I've banned news for the day. I'm tired of hearing it. But Susan and I do Zoom dinners with a couple of friends. So I'm cooking. I deliver the food to their house. Then we meet on Zoom and eat.
That sounds like fun. That
Works
sounds
for
like
us.
a good way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to get creative in this day and age. Well, happy birthday. And for both of you, we hope for many, 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 many more trips around the sun.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yep. So no anniversaries, but Charlie Judson, you have a Rotary anniversary on June 16th or January 16th. So Charlie, you can unmute yourself, please.
He's not muted.
He's not muted. Is he there?
How about now?
There you are.
Now we can hear you.
My remote mute button was on, so sorry about that. Yeah, so here we go again. This anniversary thing keeps coming up.
Yes, it does. It happens once a year, whether you want it or not.
In some respects, that's a really, really good thing.
So what, do you have a Rotary aha moment, or is there something about that you remember that really resonated with you?
I do, actually. It would have been the meeting at Lori's office when we were all sitting around planning for the upcoming Parisian rendezvous. It would have been February, I guess late February, and it suddenly kind of, this realization went from person to person through the room that this was not going to work, and that these times are just so strange. And of course, that was just the very beginning, and it was kind of the mark of this realization that, this is not business as usual.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is that here we are, how many months later, 9, 10 months later, and it's still hitting us that business is not going to be as usual for a long time. So I'm thrilled to death that you all still show up on Wednesday morning. So thank you, and happy Rotary anniversary.
Yes, indeed.
And hopefully many more trips around the sun with Rotary. So here's what's happening. So today, after this meeting, there will be a meeting of the International Committee. Michael Cook, do you want to take 2 seconds and talk about what are you going to talk about?
Well, sure. We have a couple of project proposals in, and we'll give a status on a project we've contributed to, but at least voted to do that, but we haven't sent our money yet because still the process keeps going on with global grants. So we have one proposed project down in South America and another one in Nepal that we'll be discussing.
And then, so you know, if you can, stick after the meeting and hear about the international projects that we have the opportunity to participate in. Then on Monday, the 18th is a club board meeting. Anybody who wants to attend, please come. If Henry is here this morning, and I don't know because I can't see everybody, this is one of the things that you need to do as part of your fermentation process. Then on the 28th is the SCARP meeting. Now, I know Petaluma Valley is hosting and they are going to do it, but I haven't seen the flyer yet. So I'm hoping the flyer is going to be out pretty quickly. Then we have another First Friday on February 5th. But then we have on March 20th, World Water Day. So Chris Brocate, can you talk a little bit about what World Water Day is going to be?
Yes, I can. Can everybody hear me? I met with Salvador Rico last weekend up in Ukiah, and a couple of high school students, and actually newly elected mayor Mo Maureen up there. And we talked about their Rotary president and some Rotary members from our district. We're in the planning stages right now for a Rotary district-wide cleanup to participate in World Water Day. So let's see, stay tuned for that. I'd like as many people as possible to reserve that Saturday off for just taking action. If you can't get out, with your partner or in a group, small group, certainly just going out by yourself that day and taking action in your neighborhood, just, trying to mitigate some trash somewhere is what we're trying to encourage mostly. The other thing we got going on that's, I don't know if it's on your list, but we do have an Adopt a Roadway program going. Did you want?
Yeah, I'm going to have Bill Sauber talk about that in a minute.
Okay, so great. Bill's there and he can tell you what's happening with our Adopt a Roadway program that's happening. Okay, that's about all I got down. I'll keep you updated, and we'll probably have more information as soon as maybe even next week.
Right, thank you. I think one of the things is just really, we talk about in Rotary how every idea starts with one person. And Chris mentioned Salvador. Salvador got a bug up in his head about cleaning up the Ameca River in Mexico, which is where he grew up. It has taken off within Rotary to be cleaning the rivers of the world. And we have Rotary now has projects cleaning up the Mississippi, in Europe, in Africa, in India. I don't want to say all of it started with Salvador, but he has absolutely been a spark plug in doing it. And like Chris has told me many times, Rotary is probably the only organization in the world that really has the capacity to make a difference in cleaning up the rivers of the world and keeping all that garbage out of our oceans. So, we really need to go. Rotary, yay. We can really make a difference.
Maybe one last note on that. If anybody hasn't checked out ESRAG yet, or gone and just checked out the projects and or even thought of joining ESRAG, because I think it's only $40 a year, but that's where we're going to be funneling a lot of this information and a lot of these projects, specifically Salvador's project, and the group that created End Plastic Soup is going to be a couple of the keystone projects that are going to be that area of focus around the environment. And I'm hoping that, our club will embrace or try to create some sort of an event that we can participate in so that we can be open to the funding that'll be coming down the pipes for these projects.
Super, thank you. Announcements. Oh, will somebody else have something?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we can get that link on our website so that members can go to it.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so now Bob Rogers, you are here to make special presentation to these people. Now, some of them we've honored before, but Bob, if you could, please. I can't see you. So there you are. Go for it. I'm going to pause.
Okay. Well,
Stop
thank you,
sharing.
President
There you
Barbara.
go. Now you can share.
Okay.
By the way, there was
All right,
only
can you see that?
first week of January, there was only one wild polio case in the world.
It's great that we're starting from 0. Well, now 1. I believe we ended up with 140 last year.
Yeah.
That was a big increase over the year before, but or 2 years before. Excuse me, when we only had 33 in 2017 or 2018. But we are a few numbers less than last year, than 2019. So that's the good news. We're on the positive downside, we hope. So thank you, President Barbara and Foundation Chair Diana, for honoring me with the duty of making a very special presentation to 12 of your members. And now I know that we did a brief induction of a few folks, but we're going to include everybody on this one this time. It's such a privilege to serve as a District 5130 Polio Plus Chair, the best district in the Rotary world. Now, each year, we Rotarians are asked to raise $50 million to meet Bill and Melinda Gates' 2-for-1 challenge. Meeting that challenge means we receive an extra $100 million from the Gates Foundation for a total of $150 million to support our efforts to finish the promise we made to the children of the world for a world free of the polio virus. This year, we've adopted a new program called the Polio Plus Society program, which asks Rotarians, non-Rotarians, and their friends to make a commitment to donate a minimum of $100 per year to our World Polio Fund, and to do that every year until the world is certified polio-free by the World Health Organization. So today, it is my honor to induct the following Sebastopol Sunrise Rotary Club members into the Polio Plus Society in alphabetical order. They are, and I know they now belong to the Sparks Club, but Bruce and Helene Campbell, Michael Cook, Diana Curtis, Lori Darling, Scott Hansey, Bob Kaiser, Bob, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, David Mark Raymond, who was our #1 Polio Plus Society member in our district, Michael McLaughlin, Jerry Meshlam, Dan Needham, and Bill Sauber. And if I missed anybody, let me know and I'll put you down. You know, with your continued annual donation, we are assured that we will not just continue our efforts, but that we will win the fight to rid the world of polio once and for all. Charter members of the District 5130 Polio Plus Society, please virtually accept this pin along with your wristband, which will be coming to you shortly, and a certificate. There we go. And I put David Mark Raymond's name on this one, but you'll all receive one with your own name. And as I mentioned, David is #1 in the district. And we are hoping that your inductions will encourage other Rotarians to follow your lead to support our efforts towards a polio-free society, a polio-free world, by joining this society. You know, for those of you who haven't joined yet, your club foundation chair, Diana, ask her for a copy of the commitment letter and a flyer, and she'll get them right off to you. Once again, thank you, and welcome to the Polio Plus Society.
Thank you, everybody. You know, standing ovation.
I'll go for that.
We are this close and getting closer. So if you can stop sharing now, Bob.
Okay.
Then I can go back to sharing. Since we do a lot of sharing, even though We all learned how to share in kindergarten or preschool, right, David? Okay, here we go. Share again. I want to remind everybody of this. Let me know if anybody wants the link. Climate restoration. So we have cleaning up the rivers of the world, but then we also have the issue of restoration. So this was another Rotary initiative. And I also wanted to mention that some of us attended a virtual Rotary meeting last Thursday with the lady from Juneau, Alaska, talking about the Arctic. Rotary, again, is a leader around the world in these environmental issues. And I think it's absolutely incredible and fabulous. So Peter Fiakowski, Climate Restoration, January 21st. Let me know if you want the information, please. So the week in review, here I just want to say, first of all, Bill Sauber, if you could unmute yourself and give us an update. The club board voted to start participating in Adopt a Highway. So Bill Sauber, if you could tell us a little bit about the Adopt a Highway project and where we are and what's going on.
Okay, it's actually Adopt a Road.
Adopt a Road.
You may have seen around highway signs for both US highways, 101 and state highways, Highway 12, various places around California and around the country. There has been a Adopt a Highway program, both through the federal system and through most states, where people or organizations or companies can adopt a section of road and then do a cleanup on it once in a while. Sonoma County has about 1,200 miles of county roads that are not included in either state or US roads or highways. And those roadways didn't have any project to get cleaned up. I did realize that there were Adopt a Road programs in many other counties, among them San Luis Obispo County, and in other states. Texas has a very active program. I discovered some in Canada, in Oregon, Wisconsin. So I started looking at that, and really the beginning of this was when Chris first came, before he was a member, came and gave a presentation to our club and talked about cleaning up beaches and things like that. And I started taking the family and going on beach cleanups at Goat Rock and things like that. And then during the summer Peace Town concert series, I'd go up and I'd talk to Chris at his tent he had there. And he and I got to talking about how the trash from the roads gets into the rivers and eventually ends up down in the beaches. And we got to thinking about if there was a way we could improve or get a program going on Adopt a Highway. So he and I met with Linda Hopkins and Johannes, can't remember his last name, Department of Public Works. And this has been a period of about 2 years, and they finally adopted countywide an Adopt a Road program. I spoke to John Boletto about it and told him I wanted to do that section in front of the winery on Occidental Road, a mile long, both sides of the road. And we will be the first ones in the county to get signage that says Adopt a Road program by Boletto Winery. So a sign will go up, and in a week or 2 or 3, when they get the sign made, the county crew will go up and put up the sign, and they'll have a small presentation with Linda Hopkins and Johannes and probably Clyde Galatine and Chris and I and probably John, and get some promotion on it. And once that's done, the challenge will be to get other folks to adopt sections of a road as well. And one of the ideas we came up with is perhaps we could do an Adopt a Road somewhere that would be both convenient and memorable, and do it in honor of Louis Hopfer. And we could get participation from the high school kids, the Rotaracts, and you only need to do it twice a year. So it's really not a huge time commitment to any one person, but I would love to do that as a way of honoring Louis. And that would be, I would like that to be the first nonprofit one, and get some additional coverage on it as well. So anyway, that's where we stand on Adopt a Road.
So do you have any idea where our road might be?
No, I
mean, it'd be somewhere around here, right?
Yeah, yep.
We get to choose?
Yeah, you get to choose wherever you want. So as long as it's a county road and not a city road,
right,
or a US highway or state highway.
I can make some suggestions at a later date if you'd like, of some needed places too that are proximity to, like the Laguna, for instance, really make a difference, and safe.
And safe, yeah. To me, if you're going to go out there, I mean, let's face it, on Highway 12 between Sebastopol and Santa Rosa, where's the 2-lane, that is not safe. Those people just rip along. So we need some place that makes it
the state highway too.
Yeah, I know, but it's just that it's such a busy road.
Yeah.
Maybe out by El Molino where he volunteered might be a good idea too.
Yeah, that would be a good idea too.
That was kind of what I was thinking about. I didn't know about the distance, but Louis was involved in getting the kids involved in all sorts of things, and one of those was a cleanup of the Laguna down by Faircrest Mobile Home Park.
Yeah.
Another one was driving up to Lake County to plant trees. So he was great at getting kids involved, no matter where the distance was. He was always up for a trip to go and do something. And I'm excited about doing that and having both our club and Louis honored.
So thank you. I think that's great. And you'll keep us up to date.
Yep.
Super. Anybody else have anything else they want to share? Mark
Hey,
Reed.
Bill.
Yes.
I'm going to put you in touch with Cindy Carter in our club, who's in charge of our local community projects.
Oh, great.
That sounds like something we would like to get in on too.
Yeah, once it gets established and we've got our section adopted, I would like to put a program together and visit a whole bunch of Rotary clubs and see if I can't get other clubs involved as well.
Super. So Mark Reese, you had something that you wanted to share.
I do. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mark.
I would like to thank the club for their overwhelming response and assistance in supporting my car wash. I was against the city council last week on Tuesday night, and the city council has done what they call a straw poll, which gives an initial vote as to how they feel about the project. And they've completely reversed what the planning commission said did not belong in the downtown corridor at my location. And they voted so far 4-0 for my car wash. So it appears that Sebastopol soon is going to have a high quality, very, very ecologically safe and conservative on water car wash at my location once we can get that construction done. And I had a lot of great support from the community, from my customers, and from the Rotary Club. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it made a difference in what happened at that city council meeting. We go back to the city council February 16th for a final vote, which we believe will stay the same. There is a lot of complaints coming from the Rotten Robbie car wash here in town because it's so close to residences. And what the council is asking is they want to put some contingencies in place that if there are any issues with noise at my particular car wash, we know exactly what we're going to be able to do to take care of it. So again, overwhelming thanks to all of you for helping me out. I appreciate it.
Good, thank you. Lori, you had something.
I do. I'm part of the Sonoma County Medical Association, and we did our vaccination clinic for medical personnel last weekend. And they're talking about getting a larger site. And once we run through the medical people, they're going to open it up to the public. And so I'll send Michael Fells the link, and he can put it out to the club if you want. It goes really quick. They sent the link to the medical professionals last Thursday morning, and by 3 o'clock, all the spots were full. So if and when that link comes out, my suggestion is if you're interested in getting the vaccine, to get on and reserve a spot right away.
Well, Lori, I have been feuding back and forth with Mike McGuire. I'm very unhappy. I have quotes from Sonoma County officials saying the governor is a showboat. He wants to be on TV, but he doesn't deliver Sonoma County the vaccine. They're claiming they can't give out vaccine to those of us that have health conditions because they don't have it.
Right, okay,
And-
we're gonna have to table this discussion, so thank you.
Well, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So we're gonna skip Happy Bucks because we have our program.
Barbara,
David
can I ask
Johnson.
Lori one question? Just one real quick. What if you're
Go.
not 65 and you're healthy, Lori?
Okay, we're gonna have to, yeah, let's table that because we are running late. I hate running over. Charlie, would you like to introduce our program today? And I'm going to stop sharing.
I would love to. Our presenter today is my younger brother, David,
I thought so.
who has logged in from Austin, Texas. And he and I were recently talking about a Rolling Stone piece from last August in which Jimmy Carter was quoted as saying that the United States in its 242 years of its existence had spent only 16 years at peace, making our country the most warlike nation in the history of the world. And David mentioned what he called the America's longest war, and it seemed so fascinating. I thought it would make an interesting presentation to the club. He wasn't talking about Vietnam or the ground war in Afghanistan or the war on drugs, all of which have been called that our longest war. He talks about a war longer than any of those that's continuing today. He and I grew up in a newspaper household because both our parents were newspaper people. And as a high school senior, shortly after our dad died, he went off to Istanbul as an exchange student. And he ended up making newspapering his career.
Merhaba.
He returned to Turkey in his early college years for another year or so at the University of the Bosporus. And upon returning, he went to UCLA and got his bachelor's in international relations there. He was first a reporter at the Stockton Record, and then he spent 10 years in Washington, D.C. for Gannett USA Today. And by the way, that reminds me, if you want a real tour of the Capitol building, have someone with a press pass take you and get to see the inside. Anyway, he went back to Turkey where he was editor-in-chief of the Turkish Daily News, the national English language paper there. And reflecting changes in the newspaper business around the world, not just here, he left the Turkish Daily News and joined Stratfor, which is the well-known geopolitical strategic forecasting company. And then after more than a decade in Turkey, he moved with his wife Neriman to Stratfor's headquarters in Austin, where he was the editor-in-chief overseeing the global network of correspondents and the teams of analysts and editors producing the company's daily reports. His timing on that was really good. He mentioned to me that almost all the journalists he knew in Turkey had either left the country or were in jail. He left left Stratfor in 2018. And after a semester's residency with graduate students at the University of Texas in Austin, in late 2019, he founded a new magazine with a group of academic partners called Urbanitus. It's an online magazine, a journal actually, exploring the concept that in these days of polarized governments, it's the cities where much of the real work of governing actually gets done. So if you detected here that I'm proud of my little brother and my good friend, you'd be absolutely right. So David, where you go about that long war?
Okay. Well, thank you, Charlie. Good to see everybody. So I used to blanch when Charlie would describe me as his little brother, but having just qualified for Medicare, my perspective has changed on that, and now I kind of like being younger than anything. And so if I can be younger than Charlie, that's all the better. So let me just kind of run through a few things, and then maybe we could chat about this. But what Charlie and I were talking about, which led to this invitation to come have a conversation today, was really three things. One, we were talking about sort of the bipolar divisions in all societies, not only our own, but those domestic fractions that don't really become part of the discussion very often when we're talking about international affairs. Is the as Tip O'Neill said, all politics is local. He could also have been talking about international affairs, and I think that's maybe a perspective worth thinking about. The second thing that I mentioned was my view, which is a bit heretical, that there really was no Arab Spring, that we kind of misdiagnosed that by a long shot. And then I allowed that we've talked about the various sequential wars in the Middle East, and I kind of made the argument that we've really had one, and it's been going on since 1979, and that's what I described as the longest war. Now, the longest war really is a term invented by the academic Andrew Basovich for a book he edited called The Longest War, American Foreign Policy Since 1945. He made it even longer, which was in contrast to, the name of that title was in contrast to kind of the aphorism in political science that we've had the long peace since 1945. And he was arguing that's nonsense. And I think Jimmy Carter maybe came in support of that view. Basovich is a really interesting guy, and he really influenced my thinking a lot on this subject. He wrote a second book, or he's written a number of books, but he wrote also his book on the war in the greater Middle East is the book that I think best articulates just kind of how we got ourselves into this odd situation. So it's interesting that Jimmy Carter is reflecting on the absence of peace in the American experience, because it really what I could think of as the longest war really begins with the Carter Doctrine, which was what Jimmy Carter, his statement in the State of the Union address in 1980, just after he had ordered the arming of the Muslim resistance shortly after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. And what he said in that speech, it's worth quoting here, was any attempt by outside force to gain control of the Persian Gulf region will be regarded as an assault on the vital interests of the United States of America, and as such, an assault will be repelled by any means necessary, including military force. Now, the logic was pretty good then, or certainly defensible, that with the instability in Iran, the Shah had been toppled and the hostages were guests of the regime of the Ayatollah at that point. The idea that the Soviets could come down and occupy Iran, which they had done during World War II, and thus control the Persian Gulf would be an existential threat to the American economy. And so, so we've really been in Afghanistan since 1979, and whether it's with special forces or CIA or and now obviously with troops, but we never really left Afghanistan. And Zbigniew Brzezinski, his national security advisor, was ultimately dubbed this the Carter Doctrine, which he said was argued at the time was modeled on the Truman Doctrine. And so over time, we've just, I think, become, doctrine has become dogma, and we can't really imagine a Middle East without the American presence there, even if we kind of think about it as as if it was a separate set of incidents and explosions and invasions. But so just quickly running through. So 1979 is when the decision is made to equip the Mujahideen. 1982, Reagan sends troops into Lebanon, which of course had to retreat a year later after Hezbollah blew up the Marine barracks. 1985, 1987, this is really maybe the first Gulf War, although we don't think of it that way, was when Iraq and Iran were at war, and we were arming both sides, overtly in the case of the Iraqis and covertly in the case of the Iranians, with Ali North shuttling missiles back and forth via Israel in the famous Contra-Gate scandal. What we have tend to call, then of course in 1987 we reflagged the ships carrying oil, because this was all about oil. The mainly Kuwaiti ships, in order to protect them from the tanker war that was going on with Iran and Iraq attacking one another's, or tankers carrying one another's oil, which led to, among other things, the sinking of the Stark, the killing of 37 sailors, ironically by our would-be ally Iraq at the time. The 1990, we go into Iraq after the invasion of Kuwait, again about oil. And it's kind of worth just a quick note here that Saddam, was certainly a thug, but he had a pretty good argument that Kuwait was historically part of what had been administered as Iraq. But Kuwait was a creation of the British for purposes of oil at the end of World War I. So then 1993, we go into Somalia. 1998, remember we bombed the pharmaceutical factory in Sudan, which ultimately did prove false. They were not manufacturing nerve gas. Killed about 500 people at the time and up to 10,000 for downstream effects, according to one German study. But it did give us the movie, Wag the Dog. Then 9/11, 2001, of course, we're back in Afghanistan where we still are. 2003, we invade Iraq. 2011, France invades Libya. They couldn't really manage it, so we sort of took that over. With all the distractions that are obviously going on today, we haven't probably thought a whole lot about what's going on in the South Caucasus with war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but I think there's an emerging body of thought that this is sort of the next front in this long war. So since 2001, the United States has spent about $7 trillion on this continuing war, with 60,000 casualties, 10,000 or so dead. So that's 3 stimulus bills that we've paid in the last 20 years. The estimates are that the quote other deaths, non-American deaths, resulting from the 2 conflagrations approach 1 million, is minimally 750,000. So war has become normal for the United States. The long war really began to protect our energy resources. So it's worth kind of noting at this point that in 2019 was the first time in 62 years that US energy production was higher than US energy consumption. That figure is probably improved with the pandemic this year. In terms of our reliance on Middle Eastern oil, it's about 1/3 what it was 20 years ago. So in 2001, we were importing 2.8 million barrels a day from the Gulf. Last year, in 2019, pardon me, that was about 900,000 barrels a day and continuing down. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have interests in stability in the Middle East, and it doesn't mean, I was thinking about, the role of oil. It's kind of like, Sonoma County wineries bringing in, concentrate from Moldova to blend up to the to blend against the rules of the appellation system to kind of stretch the value of the wine. And so we now import oil mainly for blending purposes, whether it's light or sweet or low sulfur. But it's not the dependency that led this. But we still are engaged in a big way, and despite I think there's the retreat from the Middle East is kind of underway. It's been underway at least since Obama tried. But you broke it, you bought it. That's kind of the situation we're in. Trump obviously tried in fits and starts, and we've got what appears to be a promising peace process going on with the Gulf states. I have to just conclude this early bit of thought with, I was talking over the weekend to an exchange student that lived with our family when we were growing up on the coast, Abdullah Thani, that Charlie stayed with a number of years ago on his Kenya trip in Dubai. And Abdullah Thani told me, who's now Haja Abdullah Thani, and a billionaire with interests around the world, that he spent the weekend in Dubai with the Grand Rabbi of Jerusalem. So there's some interesting things happening, but that's my quick riff on the long war that's even longer than we thought the longest war was, and that's just my perspective. It's not a different set of facts. It's just kind of perhaps a different perspective on the facts. So I've got lots of other thoughts, but why don't I leave it there and we could just chat about maybe some questions. Charlie?
I have a comment, and that is, I think part of the reason that we collectively don't think of it as a long war is because we have been identifying different pieces of that conflict by nation instead of looking at the whole thing as a region.
Right.
Because the nations are all political, and but if you look at it as the whole region, then it really is a long war.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, Barbara. Again, coming back to Jimmy Carter and Brzezinski, Brzezinski coined the term the arc of crisis.
Yeah.
With Turkey on the left and Pakistan on the right, and everything in the midst of it in perpetual crisis. And that description of the region has proven pretty durable.
Yeah.
If you expand your perspective perhaps a little further back in time, isn't this really a continuum since the Monroe Doctrine of anybody outside the United States who chooses to engage in something we consider to be our turf, our international interests, is therefore subject to our rule, our interests prevail. I think this goes to the beginning of the Republic and the leftover of having to chase the British around because they were out to get us after the Revolution. So I think that the Truman Doctrine, where you started your presentation, is a good place to jump off. But I do think it extends before that.
Sure. I mean, I think that I mean, the Monroe Doctrine was really about the Western Hemisphere,
right?
And then we moved into the 20th century, and and while condemning imperialism and the notion of empire, we kind of went around building our own.
Exactly.
And now we have 850 military bases around the world. 850. A lot of them are tiny, like Djibouti or Diego Garcia, or I just looked up just before this started because I was curious about our base in Bahrain. We acquired it in 1941. In 2010, we acquired it from an old British base that took over. The Navy took over. Now it's the headquarters for the Navy Central Command. And in 2010, we spent $500 million refurbishing it. So we're really engaged. I think another scholar who's done some really interesting work on this is Daniel Immerwahr, who wrote a book called The Hidden Empire, about the 800 plus bases, and makes note that we don't think about Micronesia, an area that's really part of the United States through treaty. These little islands like Palau and Kashre, just south of Guam, but it's an area of islands that's larger than the continental United States, where Bikini Atoll, where we did the nuclear testing, but it's effectively sovereign U.S. territory. But we've kind of miniaturized it, sort of. I think that the old imperialism was about kind of an economy based on atoms and oil, and you needed bases for first for coaling stations and later for oil stations. Now in this sort of new world, as we've gone from mainframes to desktops to laptops to iPhones to iWatches, we don't need big bases right now. We can have little miniature ones. We sort of miniaturized the instruments of force, because the imperatives of our relationship with the global economy now are in this kind of space of pharmaceuticals and software and cultural industries. So the sort of the dominance and protection, if you will, of the economic interests has now kind of morphed into a virtual realm, and our military footprint has kind of mirrored that, to your point. So that would be my quick thought on that.
There's a statement: those who cannot remember history are doomed to repeat it. And in Afghanistan, Alexander the Great couldn't conquer it.
Right.
The British couldn't conquer it, and we made sure the Russians couldn't conquer it. What made us think that we could control it?
Hubris, yeah. I mean, I think that well, I mean, but it's I always used to I used to make the joke that the sort of cynical observation that the right sends in the Marines and the left sends in the Peace Corps, and you can have an interesting debate about which does more damage. So I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily an entirely malevolent intent, but we do have a kind of a missionary mindset that it's our responsibility to guide the world. I mean, even in the rhetoric we've seen in recent days with the sacking of the United States Capitol, the damage to our image as the shining city on the hill. Well, that image has been fraying for a while.
Yeah.
The thing that I reflect on when you talk about this is, I think it was back around World War II, some historian came out with the heartland theory. And the heartland was a junction of Africa, Asia, and Europe, which is the Middle East. And and you just roll back through the millennia, and people have been tromping back and forth, killing each other. The history of the Israelis and the Ptolemies and the Seleucids and the Romans and Alexander and the Ottomans, and it just flows on. And we've kind of, in our empire status, have stepped into that role almost mindlessly. I mean, the oil was a factor for some decades, but not now.
Yeah, it was Mackinder who, the sort of the high priest of geopolitics, that talked about the world island, and kind of really articulated, and we used this a lot when I was at Stratford, the argument that in every era there is a hegemon. The world system demands a hegemon, and there's an interesting guy that also wrote for us at Stratford, at Stanford, who wrote a book, War, What Is It Good For? Absolutely Everything. He's actually an archaeologist. I'll think of his name in a second. Anyhow, but he argues that the periods when there isn't a hegemon, the collapse of the Roman Empire, the collapse of the Habsburgs, the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, is actually when civilian mortality is the highest, and he bases this on archaeological digs and whatnot. So I get the argument that nature abhors a vacuum, and as long as the nation-state system continues to be the way we organize ourselves, somebody's got to be in charge. And do we really want it to be China? Do we really want it to be the French? I don't know. But we are at an inflection point where I think we're going to have to think deeply about this. And I think I think we can kind of relate it back to where we are now, and maybe in some ways what I was talking about the virtual empire of tiny bases that are listening posts and satellite relay stations, and getting ready for Star Wars. That when we emerge from this pandemic, the way we organize ourselves is going to be so different that all these tools, including the one that we're using right now, were pretty exotic a year ago, and now we sort of grabbed on to these as sort of life rafts in the emergency, when they're no longer something that we have to grab and hang on to save our lives and society. But we've learned them. We've climbed as a society. We've scaled this amazing learning curve to master these digital technologies. How will we organize our society at that point, and how will that affect? We all, we're having a meeting now. Yesterday I went to a meeting at the Aspen Institute. I've got a meeting later today with some friends in India. We're having, Charlie and I did Christmas and New Year's on Zoom. It's not just the change in administration that's fairly profound, but I think we're also going through what Kevin Kelly, the founding editor of Wired, in his book The Inevitable, described. He used the metaphor he used was phase transition in physics, so that at below 32 degrees H2O is a solid, above 32 degrees it's a liquid, and above 210 degrees it's a vapor, right? And so each of those represents a phase transition, and I think that that we're on the edge of a major phase transition with climate change and migration and pandemics. This is only a dress rehearsal. And to where I'm at right now, it was interesting the last time. I can't remember exactly why Charlie invited me to one of your sessions, but I stuck my head in. I think it was your mayor pro tem was speaking. And it's interesting that the issues that Sebastopol, as a tiny city, is dealing with are not the issues that Sebastopol would have been dealing with a generation ago, right? Of the urban-rural interface when it comes to fires, equity and gentrification, homelessness, the local governance is kind of stepping up to a new and kind of yet undefined role in a rapidly changing international system.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Charlie, for having a great younger brother. And it's, I think one of the things that's so great, like you alluded to, here you are in Austin and here we are in Sebastopol having a face-to-face discussion. And I think that's wonderful. So thank you very much for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right. And I hope to see everybody in face-to-face next time I can brave the forces of Mother Nature and get my vaccine and get out there. So, but it sounds like you guys are having the same vaccine insanity that we are here in Austin. So we'll get to that next. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day and a great week. Bye-bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Charlie.
Okay, here we are again. Gus. Is Gus with us? I don't think I saw him checking in. Well, he was supposed to have a way clean joke for us. Does anybody have a way clean joke for us?
I'm sure we do.
No? Okay, well then, we'll go on to Michael Fells.
Yeah, number 21 is Lucky Bill Schlutius.
Aha. Here you are, Bill. I shall write your name on it. And scratch it and see if you're a winner. So far, I think the biggest one we've had has been 3 free draws, but we keep trying. So Joe.
So Barbara, away we go.
Away we go.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling until then. Happy trails to you.
Okay, remember, stick afterwards for the International Committee meeting. Find out about what we may be doing. Stop recording.